I love to talk about the game. The game is just, it's given me a whole life. It's probably given me about 10 lives, actually.
Welcome back to AmeriCricketTv, where we cover everything in America. I'm Anil Shankarabanchi.
And I'm Richard Ray. This week we have an extended conversation with an Australian cricket legend, Matthew Hayden, a world champion and now a world champion commentator.
Oh, well, down the ground he goes. He's hit that like an absolute rocket. He's got this ability. He just wanders at the bowler.
Matthew Hayden, the cricketer, was a powerful and aggressive opening batsman, a leader in Australia's golden era of Test and one-day cricket from 2000 to 2008. Today, he's a top commentator for the sport. He covered the recently completed Major League Cricket season, then sat down with AmeriCricketTV for a wide-ranging conversation.
Look, I have had a great career, there's no doubt about it. It's been a superb career, it's been a diverse career because I've sort of seen the game go through three different phases. The semi-professional, even non-professional, semi-professional, and then fully professional. And that kind of has given me a great insight into the evolution of cricket, the evolution of high performance culture in the game, programming, administration, and now broadcast and the media side of it. So I've kind of got the full experience, the full gamut of options and opportunities and what goes in between as well. So it's nice to see something at a formative stage, and for me, throughout my career, one of the things that I'm really proud of is that I'm a one club man, one state man, one country obviously, one franchise setup. So getting to experience those franchises at their inception was such a blessed opportunity to see not only the vision for the sport, but then in line with that vision, the creation of franchise cricket. And in particular, as we sit here today and watch the Major League Cricket tournament come to fruition for the second year in a row, hopefully there'll be many more, backed by your bigger counterparts in Chennai Super Kings, for example, in Texas Super Kings cases and others. That can only kind of be an enrichment process for cricket here, because once you sort of start to seed that idea, you get the resource that gets connected not just to the high performance side of the game, but indeed all of the other layers in between, of which ultimate layer is to see kids younger than 10, girls and boys, with cricket bats and balls in their hands instead of maybe basketballs, or not instead of, actually complementing, because that's sort of ultimately how you get a better cricketer as well. When I was a kid, I was a hunter, a fisherman, a surfer, a tennis player, a golfer. Pretty much living in country Australia meant that you got an opportunity to do all those things, and they just make you and shape you to be a better athlete. Ultimately in sport, in particular I guess franchise-driven sport, you don't have to look at Texas to understand that you've got maybe 10 world-class franchises across multiple formats, multiple gender, and so cricket has to fight its way. It's not like it's going to be like any competitor, it's going to have to come in swinging. But the biggest challenge for cricket is, and like every other sport, it has to have a surface to play on. So if it has to be brought from other countries, like you're saying, then the cost of that will be significant. But in the long term, better venues makes for a better product makes for greater viewership. And even just listening anecdotally to some of the live crosses that we're doing, that Uttam Chandani's doing at the ground. Nikhil is doing a really good job of actually extracting out those young Americans that are saying, this is a really exciting game. It's a fast-paced game. It's got lots of action, not a lot of stoppages in play. In fact, it's demoted to have stoppages in play. you know, which I think is a really significant part of cricket. You know, when I look at our other competitors, I'm likely to have 3 or 4 beers in between a play. Sometimes the game sort of stops for that long. And also that stoppage in play is a little bit like a strategic timeout in cricket. What insights do you get as a pundit watching that? Not much, I feel. You know, so it's the live action that actually, and the continual action that continues to drive new audiences all around the world to our sport. But the venue is a big one. You know, you look at this venue that we're playing here at Grand Prairie, and it's a belter. It's not a huge stadium, 7,000 as opposed to some of the other franchise setups here, but in that 7,000 people, when they arrive today, they'll get a great experience. You know, they'll get full action over 4 hours. They'll get great food vendors. They'll get all the music and all the themes. They get the fireworks, and they'll have a lot of fun. I mean, cricket promotes that festival atmosphere where you can talk amongst your mates, but still see what live action constantly. It's a great product, simple as that, but the wicket is the key. Look, there's not a lot of innovation in it's a very conservative game in the actual products that are used. There's been, when you think about the evolution of a cricket pad, for example, still to this day you would have, if you got a small pocket knife to a pad, you'd still have an inner layer of cane in the pad, you know, created by some buffered around some padding of some sort, and then various layer surfaces of skins. So, you know, I suppose for me, I was always looking to be an innovative player. You know, to make the Australian cricket team, I had to have a vision beyond the Australian cricket team and try and change not only the game of cricket in Australia, but the game globally. So hence my kind of aggressive approach to the game. So I was always looking for tools, resources that would enable me not only mentally to be able to position myself that way, but also, you know, something that would be a point of difference. Now, cricket bats haven't exactly come a long way. I mean, one of the biggest innovations was the fact they got rid of the camber in the face of the bats. They created flat profiles. And even when I do that, you can see what that does to the edges of the bat. It makes them thicker, and nothing's changed in the width of the bat, obviously. But the Mongoose product and other products now that are coming along, like Greynick has got core technology where, you know, drills into the actual blade itself, and it stiffens the handle up, and it causes less rotation of your hands because it does so. And when you see the ball at very slow motion hit the bat, the bat will naturally, because of the weight and velocity of the ball and therefore the momentum, you know, it changes the actual face of the bat. So nothing much has really changed though. When I look back at my first golf club set, I mean, Matt Bagman, it's just like cane handles, you know, and you know, really thin little shafts and heads. Now I look down at my golf club and it looks like I'm swinging a tennis racket almost. You know, it's just, you know, huge challenge and innovation. And a lot of players my age and beyond my age don't like to change. They see it as not a threat, but just an intrusion on what is the purer game. But I like to sort of see it differently. I like to see it in a way that the evolution of the game carries and brings together more opportunities, more talking points. The Mongoose is a great example of that. I haven't used that bat for 15 years and yet people still talk about it. And the thinking actually was born out of a baseball thinking, because in the World Cup in 2007, I was hitting round on round with Mike Young, my favourite coach, American baseball coach, in our Australian cricket setup. And the round on round I was finding was carrying the ball 20 yards further than what a normal bat would do. So when Mongoose presented the idea of having a shorter blade, same length bat, because I didn't have to change my batting posture, something that was, you know, really fundamental. If I had to come up or down in my stance, that was not going to work. Didn't have to change anything. But then to realise in power hitting or range hitting sessions, this bat was carrying the ball 20 yards further. The only thing then mentally I had to get around is the fact that I was using half a bat. And your reaction sort of says it all, you know, it's like, well, how can you do that? But, you know, from a professional point of view, you're not really hitting outside a zone of maybe that. Like even on short balls, you know, you're either attacking that or you're evading that. And so it just made perfect sense that that was something that I could look to trial in the shorter formats of the game where I wasn't interested in defending, it was just out and out attack. And it worked, and it got people talking, and the product was good. The way that the advancement of the female game has taken on has been, you know, extraordinary. You know, I think their programming now and their mix of and ability to be able to really shake it up in the professional landscape has been, you know, such a positive, you know, to our cricketing fraternity. And so, you know, they catch your eye. The women's cricket team, and I suppose being a little bit biased, but in particular our women's Australian cricket team has outperformed the men now for over a decade. I mean, their consistency, their commitment to professionalism, and I suppose what I've really noticed is that, you know, their levels across the board have just lifted, and with that has, you know, become a real dominance in the landscape of cricket, and now other worlds and other countries, sorry, are starting to like chase it down, which is exactly how you get improvement. You have a look at now the dominance of the Indian cricket team, and you know how a player like Virat Kohli, for example, has as an outlier also kind of like led the charge into that professional regime of cricket in India. And look, it's got to be tough because I mean the conditions are tough in India as well. Like no one wants to be, you know, standing out in 40-degree heat and be of a fitness level that's now got to cope with all of those rigours. But because, you know, these few individuals have managed to sort of scale those heights, the rest are sort of, even if they don't get all the way, they get further than what they would have if they didn't have good role models. In terms of competition and franchise, there's two that stand out in mind, and that's the Mumbai Indians, Mumbai, New York, and their other franchise, and Chennai Super Kings and Texas Super Kings and their other franchises through the other competitions. But, you know, as a franchise, it's abundantly clear that they are the most successful, potentially for very different reasons. And philosophically, I align a lot more with Chennai because they're kind of a one dog, one bone type approach. You know, it's harder to get out of that team than into it. Their support staff is there since conception. They've got this alignment with Tamil Nadu cricket, Tamil Nadu Premier League, you know, Chennai Super Kings with the IPL, and I think they're an important member of this particular setup here in America, because what they will do is the most important part in the whole kind of, you know, define, align, and then design theory, DAD theory, is they've defined already successful franchise code. Their alignment piece now to clubhouses here in Texas, and hopefully to your academy as well, you know, provide that much needed infrastructure and resource and funding, but also HR, you know, to tackle off those important issues around, and continuity in program as well. You know, so it's kind of like the perfect synergies around what then the design of it all looks like, and that is the burning question. You know, how do these franchises sit in a space like America, who aren't necessarily aligned to the MLC, for example, USA Cricket Association, and that's a shame because, you know, it's going to go ahead anyway. Just like the franchise setups, how are they aligning with the ICC and the programming that is already there, which is huge. But one thing I am starting to notice now, and we saw a couple of examples in the telecast yesterday, that, you know, there was bona fide Americans watching their team. They had the flag, the yellow flag was out, They had sort of, curiosity around the rules, were questioning the rules as well. I think having an American vision on the sport is a good vision, because once they sort of grab it, they'll start to go, I'm not sure about that rule, and they'll work into how they can change. Like, for example, young Jimmy that was on our commentary, he's like, well, how come there's not a run out off the last ball of every game? It seems like such an obvious thing, and yet he's right. There's not. There's people are not falling on their sword, because cricket clearly is also, as well as a team sport, an individual sport. So there's those kind of conflicts, that Americans just can't understand. And it's good that they challenge us, because as the sort of broader and wider cricket community, because it is just making perfect sense for that to happen. Test cricket in skiing terms is like fresh groomed powder, sitting in Killington and Vermont, as opposed to like getting test cricket's like getting dropped heli style, sort of off piste, and just having to plough your way through jungle. So it's, and look, those two, where we're talking now is in and around franchise cricket, but I also want to express my deep and committed passion to what the purest game is, and that's Test cricket, and how bloody hard it is as well, and all of those magnificent skill sets. Test cricket sort of says it all, right? It's just such a brain freeze. It hurts to even think about living some of those days again, where you're constantly as much out of play as what you're in play. You're constantly like under pressure through different skill sets as the wicket, determines over not just 4-hour period, 4 or 5 day period. You get to see the best and the worst of yourself, and it's just, you're just challenged mentally, physically, spiritually. It's just everything, is in that game right there. And so it's kind of cool that we get to see and cherry pick out, some of the skill sets and mindset changes and all of those things that filter out of T20 cricket. Because I'm sure our kids, they're going to be challenged to play, 5 days. I mean, 5 seconds is long enough in some cases, But yeah, I love the way that, it's starting, American cricket is starting the journey. And I see amongst all communities actually that maybe aren't focused on the long format game, including some of the full membership nations like the West Indies, for example, that struggle in Test match cricket but love the shorter versions of the game and are very good at it. The Olympics, let's briefly touch on, the role of the Olympics and how that, has the potential to launch into stratosphere cricket amongst, countries which otherwise don't play. Other mass cultures, put it that way. Because when you think about the scale of cricket, you can see why it's really important to the Olympics. I mean, in those names that I just mentioned a few minutes ago, there's, 3 billion, of the 8 billion population that are actually participating in our game. So the numbers are compelling. But I think cricket's really ambitious as well to break into and to strive into spaces that have advanced franchise-driven sporting cultures, but advanced sporting cultures, full stop. When you look at the US, every time you go to Olympics, you'll see the US, you'll see Russia and China, those sort of 3 enormous land masses going head to head. And then you'll see little Australia like poke its head up, in the surfing or the pool. And it's in athletics even, you'll see us like come into our space, and so it's possible that cricket's a bit the same. It'll be that sort of injection. And you saw the way that US, provided great entertainment, through the World Cup. Long may that continue, because that's awareness. I mean, that's going to 3 billion people across the planet. So when my voice starts speaking on commentary, I'm well aware of the fact that you know, the messages that we carry and the enthusiasm that we carry and passion that we carry for the game, you know, enables a new fan to go, oh, this could be something that I'm invested in and interested in.
That was a phenomenal interview that I got to do. Honestly, like when he walked in the room, he has such a presence. I was like, oh man. Then he starts talking and he's just the most personable guy in the room. I could have just kept going, but unfortunately.
You were saying he's a big burly guy, but he turned out to be a teddy bear.
And I stand at an incredibly towering 5'6", so when a 6 foot plus athlete walks in the room, it's just even more intimidating. But he was so kind, so welcoming, and he was willing to give us so much information about his years performing in the game, as well as everything that he's been seeing from the commentating. It almost got like a bird's eye view of the whole thing.
Yeah. I loved it
wonderful.
too. Well, listen, AmeriCricketTV has become a place where you can see cricket legends, hear from them. In fact, we're going to have more of that.
Do you want to see more, like the Matthew Hayden interview? Well, when we come back, we'll tell you how.
Hi guys, I'm Wasim Akram. I'm here at this 22 yards Dallas. It's an indoor facility, one of the best facilities I've seen in America. I've been to quite a few, professionally done. And let's talk about the surface here. This specially has been ordered from Gabba. Gabba is in Australia, Brisbane. That's a very famous cricket ground. And their people have designed this. This is absolutely incredible. It's like I'm doing a pitch report, but let me see. This rock hard. And it turns, and being an Australian, there's a lot more bounce here. So if you want to improve your batting or bowling, this is the surface to be on.
In the last 6 weeks, AmeriCricketTV has been the place to come for cricket legends, and we think legends in the making.
And if you're just now finding out about our channel, then here's where you need to go to both hear and see more from them.
Okay, 2 weeks ago, episode 9, we had the Sultan of Swing, legendary bowler, now a top commentator, Wasim Akram, the pride of Pakistan. He sat down with us here at 22 yards in Lewisville, North Texas, for almost 45 minutes. It's a super engaging and far-ranging interview. The guy is simply pure class.
Absolutely. And a couple of weeks before that, we had a double dose of celebrity status and legends. In episode 7, we had Rohit Sharma, the hitman himself, during his trip to Dallas, when he was here talking about the new academy that was opening up, as well as being able to give advice for the younger generation of cricket stars which are up and coming. And in the same event, he was talking about all of his captaincy stories and what advice he would give to other captains going into the game. He really wowed the crowd there. That same episode, Dawal Kulkarni, fresh off the championship win in the Masters World Cup for India, another great bowler and now seeking to help US grow cricket in America.
Another great guy. We had lots to say, and we want to mention one more. She's a young lady we think could be a cricket legend in the making. Snigdha Paul, who found success in both cricket and softball here in the United States, but decided she's going to relocate and has done so to India to pursue a professional career and a spot on India's national team. We think you will fall in love with Snigdha and want to follow her journey with us. And again, she's on episode 4. Well, now that you've found us, stick around a while and check out some of those other episodes.
One more quick break, and when we're back, our favorite segment on this show, Viewers' Comments, where we get to have a conversation with you, the viewer, through comments that you leave right here on this channel.
Real short break.
Hello, I'm Wasim Akram. Please watch, subscribe, follow AmeriCricketTV.
Welcome back, guys. And honestly, we were just kind of debating this right before we got back. We don't have an official name for this segment, though it is our favorite segment.
We've called it Viewer's Voice and Viewer Mail and probably some other things. So I don't know, maybe people can comment.
Yeah.
What should we call this? I kind of like Viewer's Voice.
Yeah, well, you know, the alliteration's certainly there, but Let's see what the people come up with. Hey, leave your name for this segment in the comment section below, and whatever comment gets the most likes, I guess we'll just go based on that.
Well, let's look at some, because we're getting a ton of comments after the Wasim interview. This one is just, hanging with Shell, BZ5BR, something like that. Most important sense heard from Wasim: talent would help you in the initial years. Thereafter, it is your hard work that would be your real assets. And he did have some pretty specific stuff about how to, if you go back and look at that interview, he had some pretty specific stuff about how kids can get better by watching the game and by repetition, by simply doing it over and over and over again. I thought he had some, most of it was hard work. He says it's hard work and you got to put your phone away.
Right. And I really like this quote from Bruce Lee. He says, "I'm not scared of the 10,000 punches you practice once. I'm scared of the one punch you practice 10,000 times."
That's a good one.
And I think that just showcases how physical, tactile practice, putting the 10,000 hours in the lab, that truly just shows on the field, especially in sports. And man, when you watch these professionals go at it, you kind of see it's like the iceberg. You see this much, but there's so much more work that goes on behind.
Absolutely.
There's another one right here. When all MLC teams have their own stadium, especially Los Angeles Knight Riders, whose stadium would be the possible venue for 2028 LA Olympics?
Okay, again, if you go back to a couple episodes ago, we talked to the CEO of the Texas Super Kings, and he talked about all of the teams that are currently in it have stadium plans. But then last week, Smit Patel, our Crick correspondent for Crick Buzz, was talking specifically about the one in Seattle, which seems to be the furthest along. They call it Marymore Park, and they really want to make it very Seattle-like with lots of fauna and flora, make it less of a stadium, more kind of like a destination to go. But I think they are specifically targeting the Seattle stadium for use in MLC in 25 and possibly use, as the questioner asked, for the 28 Olympics. Could be a site where they play some of the games for the 28 Olympics.
That'd be phenomenal if that happens. Honestly, I really love that the infrastructure that's coming in for the sport is really getting all that love from various other kinds of sports as well. It really does make that landmark for the culture really more relevant to so many more people. And I think that's what shares the love, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It needs to be an event.
Right.
Something you go to for more than just the match. It's an event.
You're right.
Okay, let me pick this one. Sequoia Hunter. Great sense of humor and sparkling wit. I think she was talking about Wasim.
Correct.
In fact, I'm sure she was. And I really got to tell you, folks, he really was fun just to talk with and hang around with for 45 minutes or an hour or so. He does have a great wit. Didn't take himself too seriously at all. So I'm glad people saw that in the interview.
Incredibly charming. And you really see the love of the sport and love of the craft, and both between him and Haydos as well. I think when they talk about cricket, they light up. And I think that behind all of the stats and behind all of the wins and losses that you see on paper, they're still people, and they still have shining personalities. And that's what I really love about these interviews. You really get to see the people behind the stats.
I hope the rest of them are as good as those guys have been.
Certainly.
Okay, I've only ever seen Wasim play once, and that was in '92 at Old Trafford for the Test match. I think that is England. Mm-hmm. I was only in the ground for the first day when Pakistan were batting, so sadly I never saw him bowl live. I never saw him bowl except on tape. Obviously, I just got in as. But did you see him bowl as a kid? Did you?
Unfortunately, I never went to many of the games in person because.
But you probably saw him on TV.
On TV, certainly. The games were always playing, and so we got that exhilaration of when all of those particular bowls were bowled, and then in that moment when the camera watches it, the excitement that happens in the crowd, that's certainly something that I had. But much like what the commenter left behind, I was never actually at the stadium. And when you're in the right room with the right crowd, with the right energy, you remember that from the T20 World Cup, it changes the experience with the sport. So, I kind of have the same thing left over as the commenter does. But I think that's what I love about, again, the culture and the stadiums being available here in the States, because now I get to have everything I didn't have as a kid.
Well, and they did a really good job out at that Grand Prairie.
Yes, certainly.
The games that had the big crowds, it was an event. It was sparkling. One last one. This is from Carlos Mendez. Epic interview. 38 minutes went by in a flash. Was it really 38 minutes? It went by like that. And we love Wasim. We hope to have him back.
And I truly love the width of information that they give us, especially with all their years of experience. I think at this point, we should try, I really want to try to see if we can squeeze in a little bit longer. Like if the crowd is down for it, we could try to get like, you know, closer to 40-minute interviews. Why not?
Well, we'll see. We'll see. And we're going to keep chasing legends and catching them, we hope. And I think we'll have more to bring you soon, so stay tuned.
Absolutely.